Hey guys, a couple of quick warnings before our DCKO episode gets underway. First, this episode contains spoilers for the event. DeVoe and I recorded our discussion the same day that KO number 5 released. You're hearing this just a few days later, so it's as fresh and timely as it can get, but there are spoilers for the event. So if you are not caught up in your reading and you are looking to avoid spoilers, maybe just hit pause on this episode and come back after you are all caught up. Also, this episode contains adult language. By popular demand, you guys asked for it. I let DeVoe off the leash. I told him he can let the F-bombs fly, and I'll put up the explicit tag. So please be warned. Fun fact, I asked DeVoe to give the content warning during the actual episode, and in the warning itself, he started dropping F-bombs. So I cut that, and I'm giving the warning now, and you have a moment and opportunity to hit pause in case you are listening to this in mixed company. So you have a moment before the profanity starts, but I just wanted to give a heads up. As always, when DeVoe is here, a fun, rip-roaring time, a lot of big energy, a lot of omega energy, if you will. I like to think that maybe I bring a bit of alpha energy and we balance each other out. In any event, it's a lot of fun. I'm excited for you guys to hear it, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan journey. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. Joining me to discuss DCKO is real-life Lobo cosplayer and our King Omega, Justin DeVoe. Welcome back.
Oh, man. What a one to come back to, too. Get the kids away from the computer for this one, because it's going to be fucking crazy. I'm letting you know that right now. I cannot tell you. I haven't been this let down since the fucking Balls of Fury trailer, man. I'm here and I'm back and I'm fired up.
I have had requests in the past to kind of let you off the leash and to put up that explicit tag. And
I love it.
Other times I haven't done it, especially when we've talked about things like the Supergirl trailer or things like that. Right. But for something like this, I messaged you and I'm like, it's all right. You can go nuts here. Obviously, our setup for this is that we have the heroes and villains of the DC universe competing in this tournament in order to command the heart of Apocalypse and become the King Omega to take on Darkseid, who is returning to our world from the absolute universe, which is infused with his dark energy.
Yeah.
And this is part of DC's All-In Saga, developed by Scott Snyder and Josh Williamson, as is noted in the credits of all of the issues. And KO itself, written by Scott Snyder, drawn by Javi Fernández. Now, I essentially caught up on months worth of books over the past few nights. You had a different experience, right? You were reading this as it was coming out?
Basically? As they came out, yeah. As they came out. Again, your first plug of the night. Went over to Fat Moose, talked to Sean. I was very excited, man. I was excited when it came out in the illicits. I was stoked about it. I thought it was a great idea. I saw the brackets go up, and I was like, this is going to be really cool. Heart of Omega thing. I'm like, I'm in. It's super cool. Let's run a competition. And it wasn't like the heart thought of it. It's like, well, we're going to give you something that you guys are used to. Let's have an all out fucking slugfest. And I was like, very cool. And then the book happened and shit just like, okay, does anybody know at fucking DC what a bracket looks like? Has anyone watched a fucking Final Four fucking ever? Like, when you have brackets, people fight people in the fucking bracket, man. That's how brackets fucking work.
I do just want to say, and I want to, just so the audience knows, because this is not a video podcast, but I'm grateful to DeVoe because he backed off of the mic before he pumped up the volume. I went
all the way over here.
We all appreciate that. So, okay, we'll get into it.
So,
yeah.
Just real quick. One of my buy-ins was at the end of the DCKO preview was the two-page spread of the brackets. These people are going to be fighting these people. I said, this is going to be fucking awesome. I was taking bets. I was talking to James Azrael, who wrote the Fragpendium, about like, hey man, I'm excited about this Lobo Plastic Man thing. They're both immortal. That like it's gonna be crazy. I'd be okay with either one winning. It's gonna be awesome. And then fucking 90% of the bracket fights didn't happen. And they were just, and then someone's like, it was a red herring. I'm like, fucking why though? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're gonna fool me out, which they did with Booster. They did it over the course. They did it with the fucking final flip of like Lex. Now it's Superman bullshit. Like they did it enough. Why'd you do it with the bracket? But people were looking forward to those people facing each other, man. And I'm saying all this and I liked it. I liked it more that Batman was the first one out. And then lo and fucking behold, he gets his own book. And then he fools the Heart of Apocalypse. I'm like, oh, here we go. I fucking, oh my God. Okay. Yeah.
It's so funny. We were talking off mic, but when editor Paul Kaminsky was here a few episodes ago, at the conclusion of the episode, he said he likes to hear the feedback, including especially from our guests. He might have gotten more than he bargained for here, but
and look, it's like I said at the beginning, I still managed to like it though.
Sure.
Right? Like for what it was, I managed to like it. I didn't like the fact that you can predict who was going to be the last two right from the. I don't like that. I'm sorry. I understand. Like, and I get it. Even Time Trapper at the end, he's like, you're more important to like just the multiverse as, and then they liken back to fucking Doomsday Clock. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. But we saw it coming from the fucking beginning, man.
All right, I'll give my overall impressions in just a moment. But in terms of what this event encompassed and what we actually read versus what we skimmed or skipped, let me break it down a little bit. Well, I'll speak for myself, and then you can add your perspective on this. So to prepare for this, I read or reread the All In and Omega Act specials, the main KO miniseries, obviously, the Superman tie-in issues, starting with number 28, which was the beginning of the Legion of Darkseid arc. And I have to say, for my money, the Superman issues written by Joshua Williamson were the highlight of this event.
They were, I think, the best, dude, and even I'll agree. I think they were the best ones. When Prime showed up and then all the Legions started showing up, they were really cool.
Yes. So we read all the Superman material, the 4-issue Night Fight miniseries where we get Batman's side quest, which you were alluding to there. Most of the All Fight specials that they did, I just skimmed the Zatanna Harley Quinn one, but I read the others. And this was a late breaking decision from me. I was originally going to leave this one on the table, but I caught up on all of Justice League Unlimited for this.
Nice.
Now, what I did not pour over were the tie-in issues of Titans, Flash, or Aquaman. Titans, I guess, most notably dealt with the evacuation of planet Earth.
With the ships and stuff that they were sending up, yeah. Yeah,
and in Flash, they had this Impulse Point storyline where Bart was trying to fix things and ran amok. But so I did not really get into the Titans, Flash, or Aquaman tie-in issues. And I only really skimmed the Galactic Slam and Kids Are All Fight specials. And Boss Battle, I actually ended up giving that a quick read before we sat down tonight. So all in all, I was following the checklists that were included in the back of the books, which were handy. I guess I kind of have more to say about the reading experience, separate from the story itself, but just kind of the organization of the event. But as far as what you read, what did you end up
I read
focusing on?
Fucking everything. I did the DCKO. I did the prequel one. I did the Omega Act. I did Green Lantern Galactic Slam, which honestly was one of the funnest ones. It was fucking bonkers, dude. It was like a WWE love fest. And it was great. It was great for what it was. I read The Kids Are All Fight, the Wonder Woman versus Lobo. Well, I sectioned them off. The Wonder Woman versus Lobo, obviously. Boss Battle, the Red Hood versus Joker, which is awesome. Superman versus Captain Atom, which I have a whole fucking separate problem with the whole, I'm going to rewrite whatever the fuck I want. And no one, I'll get to him in a fucking second.
All right.
The Cyborg versus Swamp Thing, which was cool. There was, and Harley Quinn versus Zatanna, which I liked. What was up with the amount of people that were like, hey, take this one. I'm only in it to give it to you. It happened in like 3 different fucking fights. Harley Quinn Zatanna did it. Swamp Thing Cyborg did it. And I think one other one did it. I'm like, why that many people? Like, I like, that's the part I didn't. And so, yes, I did read everything except for the Flash stuff, only because I'm behind on the Flash.
Okay, gotcha. So what's funny, I was really reflecting on this, is that like you and I have both individually spent a lot of time at comic shops over our years. And what's funny is that baked into this, the heart of this event, the heart of Apocalypse, as it were, is this sort of fan-facing question of like, who would win in a fight? And it's one of those things, I feel like that's sort of you often see that as a stereotypical depiction of comic fans, that they're just standing around having these arguments.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, I mean, I spent countless hours at alternate realities. I worked there for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single instance where any of us were standing around being like, oh, who would win in a fight? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm saying in my personal experience, that was just not part of it. So the kind of core concept of this whole event is like, really doesn't speak to me, but I was open to it. And I think it's a fun hook. I'll say for myself, I'm not coming in quite as fired up, but I do understand where you're coming from. Overall, I had fun with it. It was a fun ride, and I definitely enjoyed it more than I expected to, given that these debates typically don't light my fire.
Right.
Also, this is another event led by Scott Snyder, and the audience heard me struggle mightily a couple of years ago, making my way through the metal and death metal events. So I found this one vastly more digestible and readable than those previous events. So I was grateful for that, and I had a fun time. And like I said, just in terms of the overall reading experience, was a much easier go than I had with the metal event. So that was welcome for my part.
The parts that I like do outweigh the parts that I don't like, because I just love comics, man. Like, look, I'll sit here and complain. Who gives a shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to change anything, right? But like, the appearance of Emperor Joker, chef's kiss. I love that shit. Like that stuff, or like the Almighty showing up before the Lobo Wonder Woman fight to show that he was immortal because God kicked him out. Awesome. Love that too. Even when he transferred into the New 52 Lobo and he's like, I want to kick your ass to something pretty. I was like, I love that. So the parts that I liked that were enjoyable were great. I just wish it was more of what we expected. And not to say that I don't like a twist or two, right? I'm a shamalama ding dong all fucking day. Like, I like me a twist, but the stuff that was supposed to be just should have been. If you're going to have brackets, have brackets. I didn't mind the team up every once in a while. Like, oh, you can choose someone from past, present, and bring them back. I didn't mind that either. But don't have fucking brackets. That, like, I feel like that was, like, that's a big part for me, only because I've been going to comic shops since I was 5. Okay? So I know, and there's some time in between where I didn't go. I have never had those conversations in comic book shops. I had them with friends sometimes, and now they're all over the place because every time something comes up, it's like, who would win between these people? And people always ask me, and I always go the Judd Winnick route. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's all fucking fan fiction, man. Like, it doesn't matter. There was a lot of stuff that I liked, but overall, I'm just like, and then when 5 rolled around, I'm like, what the fuck? I wanted to see Luther take a crack at it. Like, he went through this whole process. Why wasn't it him? And then with a snap of a finger, he's just gone. Like, Time Chopper's like, oh, that's a possible future. And then he goes back in time, like a Deus Ex Machina thing where it's like a dream sequence. He's like, fooled you. I'm going to give you the power right now. What the fuck was that? So what did we just read? A possible of, and that's not the first time Snyder's done that. He's done that in something else too, where he gets so far and then you realize that, oh no, those last 4 issues never happened. It's actually this other thing. And I'm like, shit like that just felt unnecessary. Right. And then the rules didn't even fucking matter. Rules were out the fucking window. Hart made a bunch of rules. They didn't fucking matter.
I got you. So it's funny. So I have my own frustrations with it. I think I'm just going to come at it maybe from a different angle because for whatever reason, I guess I didn't get too hung up on the rules or the bracket, but I get where you're coming from. And if you did, and you were expecting a certain framework to be adhered to, I understand where that could be frustrating. For me, like I said, I wasn't as concerned about that, so it didn't bother me as much. I will say, on a positive note, I did like the hooks of each of the rounds. Like, first there's this gauntlet they have to go through, then they have to acquire artifacts.
Everyone has to get an artifact.
Then we have the one-on-one battles, then the tag teams, and they bring in the absolute characters. So I liked how each month of this event had its own hook, and I felt like that kind of kept things engaging and moving. I guess where I hit a bit of a wall with this, and it really came down to that last issue, because like I said, we're recording this the same day it came out. So as of last night, I'm caught up on everything, and I'm a little bit on the fence. I don't know. And I know it's going to come down to this final issue. You mentioned having twists in the story and things like that. Early on, I think it's issue 2 of KO, there's a moment between Lex and Superman. And Lex is talking about how, when they enter the arena, they all had these visions of what would happen if they became King Omega and the universe bent to their whim.
Right.
And Lex says to Superman, I bet you, I'm paraphrasing, he's like, I bet you saw utopia, everything's perfect, everything's fixed. And I bet you rejected that because you're just going to put everything back the way it was. And it was an interesting moment from Lex because he's talking about how, I always used to hate you because I thought you did too much for humanity. Humanity relied on you too much. But now I realize you don't do enough. Right. And if I get this, I'm going to remake the world and this and that. And he turns out
and he's actually right because that's what happens.
1,000% right. Like, that's exactly what we got.
Yeah. He rejects the utopia, sucks all the power out of it. And then he gives the power back to his friends, which was obviously a very Superman thing to do. I just didn't like the fact that, so I used to coach debate at school. And the one thing was always like nuclear war. If you can tie anything to nuclear war, if you can get there, you're always going to win the argument. And in that last fight with Darkseid, it just kept getting more and more ridiculous, right? So it's like he beats him, but then he doesn't beat him, and he retreats through the past. And every time he goes through a different past thing, Darkseid sucks that up. And then he ends up at the Big Bang. And I'm just like, it was a lot. It was like way too much of that to the point where I'm just like, I just want to get to fucking find out what happens. Right? Like,
yeah. So then this, unfortunately, as being the Superman fan I am, so much of this event was hinging on Superman for me. And Snyder and Williamson had talked about how if Metal was a Batman event and Death Metal was a Wonder Woman event, KO is a Superman event. And it does come down to Superman in the end. We get that fake out in the penultimate issue where Lex sucker blasts Superman and he's out, and it seems like Lex has won, but then Time Trapper intervenes. We'll talk more about that. But throughout the story, if there's an emotional crux to this, it's that Superman doesn't really want to play, right? Because the whole idea is that in order to win, you have to compete like Darkseid. Do what Darkseid did and what Darkseid would do. And that allows you to build up your Omega energy and to win. So to fight ruthlessly and to fight selfishly.
And that goes back to the board game that they're playing at the beginning.
Right. This framing device, these interludes that we get throughout the miniseries that, as you were alluding to a moment ago, they end up not being moments from reality, but rather a pocket timeline, a pocket universe that Time Trapper Doomsday had created. But
whatever.
Superman doesn't want to be participating in this and is a reluctant participant. And so as this is unfolding, I think a question hanging over it is, to Lex's point, like, well, what happens if and when Superman wins and he has the ability to remake the universe? But then also, will Superman do what needs to be done in order to win? And unfortunately, looking at this event as a whole, and maybe you disagree, maybe audience members will disagree, I welcome other perspectives on this. It's about what you do. It's about action. I don't feel like Superman really does enough in this story.
Yeah.
There's a moment early on, I think it's in round 2, right, when they're acquiring the artifacts. Now, this was interesting to me because it wasn't Superman being ruthless towards one of the other participants, but it was towards himself. He plunges the kryptonite into himself. He sacrifices his own life like Darkseid did. And that unlocks the secret item, the Omega Sanction. So I'm like, okay, like that was kind of cool. It shows he's going to a different place, but it's still directed only towards himself.
Right.
He does take out Captain Atom in the All Fight month. So we do have that. But then when we get to closer to the climax of this, especially when the absolute characters are in there and then Darkseid arrives and he blasts them all with the Omega beams. Like Superman survives. He was just strong enough to survive. Like he's just there. And then Lex takes him out. And then he gets this get out of jail free card in the form of the Time Trapper, who had created this pocket to protect him. So I just feel like there's a lot that's kind of happening to him as opposed to him doing more. And then, like you said, we ultimately end up at the Big Bang. And it turns out Superman was playing possum because he wanted to sort of internalize the power of the Big Bang.
Of Big Bang,
right? And so he has this moment where he can win. But as we're reminded throughout this event, he doesn't like a game where there's only one winner. He likes a game where everyone wins.
Yeah.
And so he rips out the heart of Apocalypse and brings back his friends and does not remake the world. Instead, brings back the world as it was, as Lex predicted months earlier, publishing-wise. And the end result is that Darkseid isn't defeated. Darkseid is just sent back to his absolute universe to tease the next event. Absolute Crisis.
The absolute. I know you love a crisis.
Oh my God. I want to say this because I don't want to forget. So
when I saw the crisis thing, I was like, I can't wait to talk to him about it. I'm sorry.
We'll talk more about Justice League Unlimited and the We Are Yesterday storyline with all these time travel shenanigans. But let me just say right now, real quick, all the time travel business in that We Are Yesterday story didn't really do much for me. I found it rather tedious. And then what happens, like right at the end of that, friggin' World Forger shows up with that goddamn cosmic anvil. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is the last thing. If they had busted out that multiverse map, I think I might have been done. I think I might have been done.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So two things. Number one, I thought the Terrific 10 was a very sad story. Like, I did like that one for what it was. The Captain Atom thing bothered me because for the same reason why the rewriting of Lobo's history bothered me. At one point, Captain Atom says, the one thing I've never referred to myself as a god. Guy, a fucking year ago in the Jenny Sparks series, he's like, I'm God, by the way. Like, dude, you can't read a fucking comic, just one, and be like, hey, one time I referenced myself as a god. Like that's what it just seems to be. Like, I understand. Look, dude's really talented, man. I like the stuff he does, but I just don't like how he's like, it seems like he gets carte blanche to just fucking do whatever he wants. And that shit annoys me because the Jenny Sparks series was fucking incredible, dude. And the whole thing was he's like, bring anybody you want. I'm God anyway. Everyone's going to worship me. Watch how I can cure cancer and I can do all the rest of that stuff. It was 6 fucking issues of Captain Atom saying he was God. And he's like, God is the one thing I've never referred to myself as. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Okay,
fair. See, now I hadn't read that, so that didn't jump out at me. But
so good, dude. It's so good.
But that's fair. But yeah, no, but the whole thing with, just to button up the Superman piece for a second, I mean, we'll have more to say about Superman, but at the end of the day, just so people know kind of where I'm coming from on this, it's not that I necessarily expected Superman to remake the universe in his image. I agree that would have been out of character.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said, I mean, all he's done is prolong this conflict with Darkseid. This was not a permanent end. And I don't know. Part of me feels like, not that I expect Darkseid to be done away with completely forever, but I don't know. I feel like there maybe could have been some sort of middle ground here.
Plus, if you looked at the last page, he fucking won, because what we didn't find out until the end is that all the universes were fighting to beat, like, I saw Earth 2 in there. I saw, like, they were all doing it. And it's one spread of him, and all these Earths all had the Omega symbol on it except for this Earth. So you didn't even do anything to it. You did 0 fucking damage to this dude. 0. And for as cool as the Absolute Universe characters were, they should have got a little bit more props in that fucking comic, man. Yeah. Like, I thought that fight was going to be longer. Instead, it's like, what are you doing? Oh my God, you're right. Let's fight together. The fuck are you talking about?
Well, because they were basically being puppeteered by Darkseid.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. It's not like they came into this with their own agency and perspective. It's like they were plot devices in this.
And all it took was a, come on. And they were like, oh, you're right. What the fuck, man? I don't know. Like, you have this awesome universe. Like, I love the Absolute stuff, man. The Absolute stuff to me reigns supreme. That fucking Absolute Martian Manhunter is a lot better than people are giving it credit for. It is a head trip, man. It's really good. But I just feel like you lined up this whole universe, right? This whole universe that was created by Darkseid. You have these alternate characters. It's them. I assumed that they were going to show up at the end, and it was going to be like, that was going to be the fight. Darkseid's going to step in or whatever. And it wasn't. It was like, they fought for like 3 fucking pages. And then they were like, let's team up. What do you mean?
So, unfortunately, in the end, this ends up feeling more like a stepping stone on the way to the next event, as opposed to a wholly satisfying storytelling experience in its own right. And I had a moment where I got to that last page where Darkseid's proclaiming there will be a crisis of absolute proportions, and my reaction was to roll my eyes, and it kind of broke my heart a little bit, because I think back to when I was in high school, and I remember the end of Superman Batman Public Enemies after President Luthor has been deposed, and he's in the rubble of LexCorp, and he's standing there in the last panel. He goes, there will be a reckoning, a crisis. And we were on our way to Infinite Crisis. Right. And I remember as a kid, I was like, oh, this is fired so up. Cool. Yeah. Like, this is great. Now I'm like, all right, like, here we go again.
Crisis.
Another. And we were talking about this off mic. It's like, I'll read it when it comes out, and we'll do an episode on it, and it'll be fun, and it'll be, it'll be fun in that way. But I can't say I'm chomping at the bit for another one of these. And I don't know what the creative team will be, but I'm assuming Scott Snyder will be leading the charge as he has been. And I'm just kind of like, death metal, Dark Crisis by Josh Williamson. It's like, I don't know, man. I'm not excited.
So I liked how the computer image of Jor-El didn't know anything about the heart, but Lana did. I thought that was really cool.
Laura, yeah.
And then when the robot Superman goes to tell Time Trapper's like, holy shit, like I can keep resurrecting. So I'm the alpha power. And he's like, you know what? And now I'm going to give it to you. And Superman's like, well, then that's it for you. And he's like, yeah, but this is something that needs to be done. I like that it came from that source. That part was really cool. Again, there's parts of it, like I didn't dislike it. It's not like it was fucking Thor Love and Thunder. Like there was parts of it that I really got down with. A lot of parts in the epilogue were cool too, where Booster Gold's like, I'm going to find him. And now Cyborg has basically not even a mother box. He's got like the heart of Cyborg now, where like he controls the heart of Apocalypse or some such shit. The Omega Legion's still out there, and they're like, we're just going to wait. We're going to wait to see what happens. And then it seems like Prime takes over as Superman in Metropolis for the future until Superman comes back from wherever the fuck he's at.
Yeah, so that's part of the Reign of the Superboys event, where each of the core Superman titles will spotlight one of the Superboys. Right. And so Prime will be taking the spotlight in the main Superman title. Yeah, I mean, he was probably the highlight of this entire event for me.
He was fun, man.
I can't tell you like how much I enjoyed that character. The meta self-awareness, the glee that he takes when he has the opportunity to beat on some of these Legion dweebs and punch heads off. I'm like, this is great. So, there were definitely highlights throughout this. And certainly, like we were saying before, I think the Superman title in particular is one that we can really point to.
It was good. Yeah.
Now, we've already jumped around a lot. We'll backtrack and lay things out a little bit more. But I have some patron questions and comments that I want to get to here. So,
love it.
Our pal Brian Dempsey says, and just for context, I put this call out before the final issue. So these are people's impressions before they've read the entire thing, right? But Brian Dempsey says, unfortunately, I didn't enjoy this crossover event. I took the plunge and subscribed to the DC app in December. I'm glad I did. It was a cost-effective way to read all the tie-ins. There are so many tie-ins. I think I got the most from the Justice League issues, honestly. I mostly found the proceedings tedious and formulaic, but I wanted to enjoy it. I wanted to see characters throw down we hadn't seen before and see something I hadn't seen before, but it mostly fell flat and dragged on. I'm ready for it to be over. My question, especially since you're probably not reading month to month, would this have worked better as a weekly event, like Final Night or 0 Hour? I think that would have made for a tighter story and kept up the excitement of what was coming next.
So I did read month, like I know you don't because you get the app. I agree. I fucking agree with everything Brian just said. I think that you do it weekly, you bang it out as this is like the palate cleanser for absolute whatever the fuck is coming next, like the crisis of the week. I think it was too dragged out. And like I said, and he said, he's like, I was looking forward to people fighting each other. And it just didn't. It was whatever they had like on the slate, like Superman brings back Shazam and then becomes Shazam. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I would have rather just see Shazam fight whoever the fuck he was supposed to fight. So yeah, look, everything Brian just said, man, dude, he preaching, because I fucking agree.
So like we've already talked about, I read this on the app over a span of a few days, but I also agree. Even though I read it in a condensed time frame, I did have this sense, and this is what I was getting at before about just kind of the reading experience of the event. Well, first of all, on a positive note, I do want to tip my hat. When, Paul was here, he talked about how they do try to be judicious in terms of bringing in other books as tie-ins. And in fairness, it's not like, every book across the DC universe tied into this. It was relatively contained compared to what we've seen with other events in years past. So credit where credit's due on that front. But as I was reading it, and like I said, I followed the checklist. So I was following this in reading order. Once again, credit where credit's due. Everything lined up. It tracked. I felt like I was getting the beats in the correct order. So that checklist was solid. But at the same time, especially with the Superman tie-ins and especially with the Justice League Unlimited tie-ins, I'm like, this feels like it's taking forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt like an eternity. Like I said, I love the Superman issues, which followed Lois and one of the Superman robots and Superboy Prime trying to get this information from Lara from the Kryptonian archives about Doomsday to Doomsday.
Yeah.
But it was months of publishing time. I mean, story time, I don't know, a few hours. I don't think much time is meant to have passed over all of this, but it just felt like forever. Similarly, the Justice League Unlimited issues, the Terrific 10, this march through hell to confront Neron. Once again, I just felt like this taken forever. Yeah. So, like, I don't know. Part of me feels like, for anyone listening to this, if you haven't read the event, but you're kind of curious about it, you're not concerned about spoilers, that's why you're listening to this.
Yeah.
And then you're deciding whether or not to go and read it on your own. Tell me if you disagree. I really wouldn't recommend someone following that checklist the way I did. I would really say, read All In, read Omega Act, and then read the main miniseries. And then you can do like the Superman issues on their own. You could do the Justice League issues on their own. If you're really into Batman's side quest, you can read Night Fight on its own. Obviously, it's not going to line up perfectly, but I feel like that might ultimately be a more satisfying reading experience, because reading it the way I did and the way you did, issue to issue, month to month, it just felt like it was taking forever.
Yeah. Well, actually, a couple of them I didn't read in order of the checklist, like, because again, like I pick up every 2 weeks and I'm still behind on some stuff. So some stuff I'll go right through. I actually like the Aquaman offshoot.
Okay.
It's a great story. His daughter is actually Mera's mom, and she's coming back. She wants to take over Atlantis and shit like that. Like it was fun. A lot of the stuff that was going on while KO was going on was good. That had nothing to do with KO, because Night Fight proved again that Bruce Wayne's the worst fucking Batman ever. They just continue to prove it. Every new world he went into, he's like, this one's better. This one's better. He's better than me. He's better than me. No shit. Yeah, we know. Everywhere else has like this piece, like Nightwing's running it, and he has all these Robins that like are everywhere, and there's no crime and shit like that. I'm like, yo, you keep getting like, you're the worst at the job that you created, man. It's I don't know. And then he gets back in on a fucking technicality. It's just like, come on, man.
Yeah. So on that note, might as well just address this now. So alongside the main proceedings, we have this 4-issue Night Fight miniseries written by Joshua Williamson, drawn by Dan Mora. By the way, can we just take a moment to sing the praises of Dan Mora? Because this guy
always will.
Was everywhere. I mean, he was drawing the Justice League Unlimited issues. He was drawing Night Fight. He was doing covers for a bunch of stuff, Superman and Flash, and he was all over the place.
He works, man.
This guy is not just pumping out quantity, but it's great stuff. So I wanted to mention that. But anyway, the gist of it is Batman is taken out at the very beginning of KO when they're making their way through that gauntlet at the very beginning. And
it's a race.
Yeah, it's a race, basically.
It's a foot race.
But it turns out, in addition to the armor that he had chosen, because they're all allowed to bring an item with them into the arena, he had also smuggled in a mother box, and it activated once he was quote unquote killed and turned to stone, one of these statues, which is what happens when you're defeated. So he's woken up by this and transported out of there, but it turns out he's taken to these alternate realities created by the Heart of Apocalypse as punishment for cheating during this game. And so over these 4 issues, we're taken to 4 different versions of Gotham, each one sort of led by one of his Robins. Yeah. So we have the Dick Grayson and Jason Todd and Tim Drake and Damian. And so we see these worlds that they've created. And to your point, in some way, shape, or form, they've all surpassed him. Yeah. In a way. Except
for the Jason Todd. Dude, the Jason Todd one is just abysmal. He's like, there's nobody here. It's like, whoa, shit.
Yeah, like the city is sealed off because of Joker's poison, and it's like just him there alone. But ultimately what the Heart of Apocalypse is trying to get Batman to admit the final test is for him to admit that he can't win. And he finally has this realization while he's battling Damian in the final issue. And that sort of
hugs his grandkid and shit like that. It's a sweet issue. And like I said, my problem is not like, there's very few writers that I just stay away from altogether. That dude, like, Joshua Williamson got mad talent. That dude can write. There's just certain things of what he does that I don't like. But that Night Fight shit, I was like, that was beautiful. Dude, the whole scene with the grandkid, like picking the grandkid up from school, I was like, fucking gorgeous, man. You go. Like, that was that moment.
Yeah, look. Well, it's funny. I mean, a number of the folks involved with this, Paul and Mark Waid and Josh Williamson, like I have now spoken to them personally. So it's a tough thing to now come on here and talk about something that I didn't love, but it's part of the process, and we respect the work that went into it.
Look, man, I have a feeling that cats like that appreciate more when people are like, hey man, I really like this thing, but this other thing, not so much. Then someone just fucking gargling their nuts every time they meet them. That just seems to be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one on the fucking planet that does something wants to hear that everything they do is awesome, because they know it's not. They know it's not. So like, instead of giving them a Hummer, be like, hey man, these 4 things that you did was dope. What the fuck did you do over here? Those are the conversation I feel like, look, man, if I do something wrong teaching and someone comes in, they're like, dude, these 5 things are awesome, but this one thing, I'm like, really? Tell me about it. I'd want to hear about that shit.
Absolutely. I have to say though, I do prefer when you say juggling your balls. I do prefer that turn of phrase.
Sorry,
but I'm
letting you down.
No. But I say all of that to kind of circle back to Scott Snyder himself. Now, this is someone I've never met, I've never spoken to, I've never interacted with in any way, and event after event now, I'm sort of coming away with the realization that, look, this is clearly a talented guy, a successful guy, a popular guy. I mean, he is spearheading the whole Absolute line. He's out there on social media, like speaking for the company as far as all of their publishing initiatives. Like, he's the guy and clearly has a lot of fans. I think for me, I've just realized his stuff doesn't really resonate with me. I'm like, that's fine. It's okay. I'll read this. I read this and I'll read Absolute Crisis. So, it's fine. It's part of the process. All right. I got some more questions and comments here. Yeah. So Rick says, I'm enjoying it way more.
Rick.
Yep. He said, I'm enjoying it way more than I thought. My bracket was broken today, but my overall winner pick was correct. And Duncan says, similarly, I've enjoyed it more than I thought. And although it's been cool to see some classic variants of the heroes and villains in their bouts, I don't think it's really been that impactful a use of that. Still cool to see the art, though. Night Fight I quite enjoyed, as I'm a sucker for Dick Grayson Batman. Yeah.
The variants of the characters I thought was just fan service. It was cool. Man, you saw Wonder Woman, the gold armor. Saw 52 Lobo, which is just fucking great because he's a ball buster. I like that stuff. Like, again, Emperor Joker, I was like, that's really cool. But it's not doing a whole hell of a lot. It's just weighing it one way or another, but it's not like you needed any one of those things.
Jeff says, I'm enjoying it. I turned off my brain for logic in this story. At this point in DC Comics, I think they have used every excuse possible to get a bunch of heroes together to fight. So instead, I just focused on the storytelling and characterization, which has been pretty solid.
It's fucking amazing. That was a good one.
Okay. Scott Honig had a really interesting question here. So he says, I thought I'd ask about a common characteristic most of DC's line-wide crossover share, meta commentary. And then he uses Infinite Crisis as an example. And he said that story seemed to grow out of observations that DC stories had grown very dark in the mid-2000s, for example, Identity Crisis. Now, with KO, are you seeing similar bits of meta commentary about the state of DC's publishing line or about the comics industry in general?
Wow.
Very, very big question.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have a great answer. I've had this question for a few days, but honestly, the main thing that kind of comes to mind, I think it's a little bit of an offshoot of what Scott is asking about. But what I don't know, one of the things that stands out to me is, in this meta sense, kind of this awareness in a way that they're in a story. And obviously somebody like Superboy Prime right, is a great example of that. Right. So you're getting it there, but also not for anything, but like the Heart of Apocalypse, turns out it's a pretty big DC fan.
Yeah. Yeah. A very big DC fan and a very big Superman fan.
Right.
Now that I think about it, like the heart of DC is us, right? We're like, we want to see some shit, but ultimately we want Superman to win. Because when Superman starts giving up, he's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, you got to keep fighting. So I feel like, yeah, there's a lot to that, especially with like, Superman ultimately, like as Dr. Manhattan said, like, you're the center of everything, man. Nothing moves without you. And the shoe in at the end where he's like, I'm going to resurrect you just for this. I didn't like the fact that Luthor just disappeared though. And then the next time you see him, he's like, I want everyone to know how heroic I am. Like he misses out on that shot and then wants to put out a press release. Like, that's pretty much it. And I thought he would do a little bit more with that. Yeah, man. But I felt like we are the heart of Apocalypse. Like, look, actually, if you look at it that way, people must think or must have these conversations, especially online they do, about the people who would win in fights. And that's exactly what the Heart did. He's like, this is what you want. This is what you're going to get.
Yeah. I mean, so the Heart comes up with this entire tournament structure for round 2, right? Pulls in all of these artifacts, the Warlagog and the Blue Beetle Scarab and the Omega Sanction and all these things. And we get these matchups. And in the one-on-one matchups, they're allowed to choose their own form.
Yeah.
So you get, for example, the Superman Prime of the 853rd century.
Yeah.
That's a fan, right? That's a fan right there. So I think now, whether and to what extent that kind of tracks that the Heart of Apocalypse would design this sort of contest. It's funny because as I was reading, I'm like, I don't know how you would have gotten to this point, but this in a way would have made more sense to me, at least, if some way, somehow, Superboy Prime had been able to exert some influence over the Heart of Apocalypse to design this.
Which technically, based on what he can do, he can, right? Like if the dude is like, hey, like at one point he was like, and this is going to lead to a great 2-page spread of a fight. So he knows what's going to happen, man. Yeah, I feel like that could have been. But now that, dude, Scott's a real insightful cat, man, because that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. Ever wonder what would happen if a person who knew barely anything about comics decided to absorb hundreds of Superman stories from all eras and media? That's exactly what Robbo is doing on This Podcast Will Never Die, which starts with all the ways the Man of Steel stood out on the newsstands in 1938. Listen and subscribe to This Podcast Will Never Die, and you'll never look at Superman's trunks the same way again. We love digging into epic comic book runs, but what about the art of the single issue? Single Bound is a podcast series hosted by married couple Amy and Logan as they review single issues of comics, many of them starring the Man of Steel, Logan's favorite character. Listen and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube, and follow the show on Instagram at Single Bound Podcast. I'm a parent, which means that a family-friendly comic shop is a must, and there's none better than Aw Yeah Comics. Visit one of their 3 locations, Harrison, New York, Muncie, Indiana, or Skokie, Illinois, home to our pal, Sweet Sweet Bernie. Follow them on social media and at awyeahcomics.com for news about signings, live sales, and much more. Their name says exactly how they feel about it. Say it with me now. Aw yeah. I talk about Smallville a lot, but when it comes to listening, one podcast is at the top of my queue. Always Hold On to Smallville, hosted by our pal, Zach Moore. Zach and his guests bring tremendous insight, passion, and humor to each and every episode. And while their series rewatch has concluded, the podcast continues with more great Smallville and Superman talk. Listen wherever you get podcasts, and keep an eye out for the other shows on the Always Hold On To network. I don't mean to still be hung up on this, but it's the whole thing about like Superman only likes to play a game where everyone wins. This really isn't the right analogy, but I keep coming back to this in my head. The Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby, that whole thing. Like if you're not first, you're last. And then at the end, when he finally confronts
his
dad,
Dark Side, shake and bake.
Yeah. And then when he finally confronts his dad at the end, and right, it's his dad. And the dad's like, what are you talking about? Like you could be second,
you could be
third. So that's why
I was drunk.
So that's why like I keep going back to this with Superman. It's like, okay, we get that he doesn't want everyone to lose, but I don't know. Does that mean he has to, he has to turn his back on this opportunity that's been afforded him and just kind of kick the dark side battle down the road to the next event? That, I just keep coming back to that.
Yeah. The whole, like, I'm going to put things back the way they were. Really? You don't want to tweak anything at all?
I guess in fairness, the little carve out they gave themselves is that if my reading of this is correct, this new universe that he created, he winds it back up into this single ball of energy and then tosses it onto the reformed universe. That's my read on it. And so I think that's kind of paving the way for some changes, some new powers, like things like that. Like things will be a little bit different. And then Eric says, I read the first 4 issues of KO and the Batman related titles. While some of the happenings have been nuts, I kind of feel we've been on this ride before as far as Lex Luthor besting everyone so far. Yeah. I would have preferred a surprise winner. I think if you had asked 100 people who would be there at the end to fight Darkseid, most would have guessed Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, or Lex Luthor. This would have been a good opportunity to propel another character into the level of world-class badass, especially as DC launches Next Level.
If I wouldn't leave the camera, I would give him a fucking standing ovation. That's what they should have did. I said that from the beginning. When Batman was taken out first, I'm like, this might be something I didn't fucking expect. And I think a lot of people wanted that, man. I'm not saying, like, look, Batman left and ended up doing something else. You could have did that with other people too, man. Like the fact that the people we knew were going to get that far got that far kind of goes back to the meta thing too, right? But like we didn't want that. Like for all the fucking shit twists that we got, give me a twist at the end where it's like Hawkman and Plastic Man. You know, like, people are going to read it anyway.
Right.
They're going to read it anyway. Give me something that, because then maybe they do create a different universe and you have something more fucked up happening. But like, yeah, the fact that everyone predicted, like, dude, as soon as the Joker cheated his way in, I'm like, he's going to the end. He's going to the end. Like, you just knew it. And that took away a lot of the enjoyment for me. I actually got more enjoyment going, who are they going to turn into in round 2 than who the fuck is going to be at the end? Because for all the dope people that, like, show me Vixen at the end. Why the fuck not, right? Or like, you got all these universes. Icon doesn't show up. Hardware doesn't show up. Like, you could have picked anyone from Milestone too. And it's just like, you didn't do any of that. You gave us the same people that we knew were going to be at the end. And the last panel on 4 is like, Luthor takes on Darkseid. No, he fucking does not. Which is like, I don't need that twist. Show me the world Luthor's going to create. And then have that be a crisis where they got to take it back. I don't know. It just seemed like it was way too formulaic to be enjoyable completely.
So on the note of Luthor, a couple of things here. So early on, the heroes have this plan to round up all of the villains to keep them out of this and send them to the Phantom Zone. But through Gorilla Grodd and his telepathy, Lex and the others are warned and they're able to get around this and they enter. And there is I talked about that one moment with Superman and Lex, but it's either in that scene or at another point. But Lex says to Superman something to the effect of like, after everything we've been through, like you just were going to dump me in the Phantom Zone.
Yeah.
And I kind of was with Lex in that moment. After everything that they had been through over the previous couple of years in the Superman title, I don't know. Would I have necessarily expected Superman to show up and say, hey, Lex, join me in this contest? No, probably not. But I think I keep coming back to this idea. Could there not have been some sort of middle ground? I feel like Lex had kind of earned it. On a positive note, though, what I will say, in the All Fight issue where Lex battles Etrigan, there's a question that's posed that Lex ponders whether or not he has a soul.
Yeah.
And I tip my hat to Josh Williamson. Like, that's a clear Triangle era fan right there, because that was a part of the books at the time during the Underworld Unleashed crossover where all of these villains made deals with Neron. And for Lex in particular, this was the point in time he had transferred his brain into a cloned body and he was posing as his own son. But then he was exposed and the body was dying of a clone disease. And so he was just like this shriveled up thing in a cryogenic chamber. And then he's revitalized and he's physically fit and vital again after this deal with Neron. And I don't know that I've never lost sleep over whether or not Lex has a soul, but it is a valid, I love that came back. That was great. So
I do think I like that twist where he became the demon. I was like, good move.
Yeah.
Good, that's a Lex move. It's like, because I was like, yo, Etrigan is going to fucking trash him, dude. And the only way he could do it, he's like, yeah, well, you're a human again. And now I got a demon. So what the fuck are you going to do about it? Like, that was cool. Again, we knew Lex was going to think his way in and out of everything. I just didn't need him all the way at the end. And when he got all the way to the end, I went, good. It's not Superman. And I'm not saying that because now, since being on your show, I appreciate Superman so much more. I just didn't want to be right about that. So one thing I didn't want to be right about. I didn't want to be right about who was left at the end. I didn't want to be right about, like, you know, like, I don't know. It's just like all the stuff that I was like, oh man, if that happens, it's really going to take it away from me. A lot of that stuff happened. And smaller in-title stuff has been way more interesting lately than these big, you know, tentpole like DC KO. It just fell flat. The thing that I was waiting for, Boss Fight, I was like, it's gonna be like a 62-page epic, and it didn't do it. Again, it fell flat on his face. The whole Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Plastic Man, Black Lightning fight was a fucking farce, man. It was just like, if you put yakety smacks behind it, it would have been fucking perfect. And then like Vampirella grabs Batwoman and she's like, you're not a vampire. And then that's it. Nothing else happens. And look, I love Red Sonja. I've read Sonja's first appearance, but like, she's not going one-on-one with fucking Wonder Woman. Red Sonja is like a peak athlete human. Wonder Woman would have punched her once. She would have turned her into fucking pink mist. Come on, man. You fucking break. So like, it was cool to see, but none of those fights went anywhere. The only one that I actually really liked was the one I was hoping I was going to like. It was the Homelander from the comic, not from the show. He had the big eagle on the side, and they beat each other up exactly how I thought. And then as Superman's fading out, he's like, no, man. He's like, I'm going to teach this Boy Scout a lesson before he leaves. I'm like, that one was cool because I expected that. I knew in that one, no one was going to win. But to have nobody win anything? Sabrina the Teenage Witch is hanging out with fucking Star Sapphire? I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know, man. It was a real letdown.
You know, I don't know. I don't know enough about how that came to be. It certainly felt tacked on, like it wasn't part of the original announcement, and it sort of just kind of fits in between a couple of issues of KO, and you can absolutely read KO without it, and you have everything you need. I mean, I don't know if it's the sort of thing, like I'm sure you heard about actors like Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel, right? Like there's in their contracts, like how many hits they can take and whether or not they can lose a fight.
Yep.
So I don't know if we have a similar sort of thing going on here where it's like no one wants their character to lose. So it just ends up being some trading some blows and then that's kind of it.
I said the same thing to Sean from Fat Moose today. I was like, both sides are like, well, we don't want our guy to win. Well, we don't want our guy to lose. We don't want our guy to lose. So we're just going to let him fucking slap box the whole time. And that's basically what happened. And it was just like, okay, but why? Like, dude, you have all these multiverses where shit doesn't matter. Make someone lose. What difference does it make? They're going to go right back to their own book anyway.
You know, as far as like who's left at the end of this, it's a tough thing because I know for myself, honestly, it's like if it hadn't been Superman in that final issue, I would have been mad. I mean, when I finished issue 4 of KO and Superman survived the Omega beams, and then it turns out he had inadvertently shielded Lex, and he says to Lex, like, let's work together, and Lex just blasts him.
That's perfect, though.
Well, it was funny, though.
That's what I expect.
Yes, like that does make sense for Lex, but I guess I kind of go back to what I was saying before, just as I would have liked Superman to maybe reach out to Lex at the start of this instead of trying to dump him in the Phantom Zone. I don't know. Maybe it just would have been interesting to see Lex approach that moment in issue 4 differently. But I agree. Yeah. Ultimately, it's in character. But I came out of issue 4 and I'm like, that can't be it for Superman. Yeah. And so thankfully it wasn't. So like it's a tough thing, and someone's going to be disappointed no matter what.
Yeah, but I do like how both reveals were told in the beginning. Lex was right about Superman, and the heart in the beginning was like Darkseid already won. All this shit is just window dressing at this point. Like he's already won, and he did. He might not have won the fight, but he just got bounced into his own place, and now he's causing havoc everywhere else. So the reveal was right up front. We were just like, oh, okay. And then when it actually came out, see, like that's a cool twist. To me, that one is really awesome. But everything else just like, it's like you said, it just dragged, man. It just dragged. Like, meanwhile, when I saw all the brackets, I was like, I want every episode of this. Like, I want every issue. And then when it wasn't like that, like, why set it up that way? And I know that that's not a big hang up for you, but when I see potential, like, fights and then what they can lead into and who's going to stand at the end, that's the KO I wanted to see. If you're going to go through a bunch of people, go through a bunch of people. Some of these people just walked right into the end. And it was just like, well, what the fuck? Like, no one really fought anybody.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So I want to back up here a little bit and talk about, because like I said, I mean, I ended up reading all of Justice League Unlimited and I went back to that initial All-In special. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about the road to this a little bit. I actually quite liked the All-In special, this whole idea that Darkseid has forged his own miracle machine with his own blood and the blood of Calabac, and he uses that to force the Spectre to bond with him. And then he shows up at the new Justice League Unlimited satellite and seemingly dies, but instead has actually ascended and made his way over
everywhere
to the Elseworld, which is then infused with his energy and reborn as this absolute universe, right? And then it's all about him making his way back here. And at the end of the All-In special, we have Booster Gold making his way through one of these rifts that was left behind. And
he's like infused with Omega energy.
Right. He's got the temporal energy and the Omega energy. And so he's able to do this, right? And he ends up in the future of our world, which has been taken over by Darkseid's Legion, these members in the absolute universe who are indoctrinated by Darkseid. And so that's an important piece of this puzzle, this whole idea that the future is lost. And now Darkseid's agents are working their way back to the present time. And obviously that plays into the Darkseid's Legion storyline from Superman, which brings back Superboy Prime and all of that. As far as Justice League Unlimited, this is one of the big picture things I wanted to ask you, because I'll be perfectly honest. I really don't foresee myself doing a whole dedicated episode on Justice League Unlimited, which probably reveals kind of how I overall feel about it. But yeah. I guess this incarnation of the Justice League, just like the animated series from decades ago now, this whole idea that it's not going to be a discrete team of 7 or so, but rather every hero on Earth is a member of Justice League Unlimited. Yeah. This didn't work for you?
I think coming off of what it was cool. I think it's gone on for way too long. Like you got people with and it's great because I have a bunch of like the card keys. Like it's great, but now you have like so like what problems do you have to have? You have to have a dark side problem because every other problem's taken care of. And then you did have Justice League Red, which I actually liked, which is basically Red Tornado gets taken over by something, and then Red Canary has like this red power. It was a good read. It only went for like 6 issues, I think. But the idea that they're all together in this mission control, sending people out to different places. Then you had the Forever Evil, where like a bunch of like the Legion of Doom from the past showed up, and they're this cult called Inferno and stuff like that. But like when you have all of them in one place, you can only have crisis level events.
Yeah. So, and this is Mark Waid and Dan Mora on this series. I mean, I love these creators. It's weird because I loved the Justice League Unlimited animated series.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm inherently opposed to the concept of a Justice League Unlimited, but I think a difference or a distinction I can draw is that in that animated series, even though you had a ton of characters in play, the episodes typically would really highlight a relatively small group.
Yeah.
And I felt like you got a more emotionally satisfying story in those individual episodes. I wasn't really feeling that as much. I will say the first few issues, the first handful of issues of the comic, like you said, we're dealing with Inferno, which ends up being time-displaced members of the Legion of Doom recruited by Grodd. But we don't know that at first, and they're creating all these ecological disasters. Yeah. There's also this business about the Justice League Airwave, this new member who ends up being an unwitting accomplice of Grodd. But then there's also a parademon nest that they're dealing with. There was some interesting stuff in those early issues. I think just
like sentient parademon, like one is just like this head parademon. Yeah.
But I think like ultimately that iteration of the Justice League, it just doesn't speak to me the way Morrison's Big 7 does, or like the Brad Meltzer iteration post Infinite Crisis. But that's just a matter of taste. But then we get into this We Are Yesterday crossover between Justice League Unlimited and World's Fight. And you read that, right? That's what we were just talking about, right? Yeah. I just didn't care, man. I just like the time travel shenanigans. It was too much. It just lost me. It was too much. And it broke my heart. It's funny too, because the World's Finest series, if ever there were a modern day series tailor-made for my dear friend Rich Roney, who grew up with World's Finest, pre-crisis World's Finest, loves Mark Waid. But to my knowledge, I don't think the series has really held his interest. And I don't want to speak for him, but I know him quite well, and I'm reasonably confident if I were to give him We Are Yesterday and all the time, I just feel like he'd be like, I checked out. Like, I just don't know that it would have held his interest. And I had a similar experience with that, unfortunately.
In the, I will say that just to switch gears, I like that, I like the Lois Lane got her Superwoman powers back, like in the moment. Like, I thought that was really cool. Like, again, there's parts of the Superman stuff, I think was my favorite. Just to touch on the Justice League stuff, I think all of them in one place. I did like All Along the Watchtower, though, the question one. Like, that was really cool, but I don't like them in this big unified. It just doesn't do it for me, because then there's always an answer to everything that doesn't get interesting. It was just like, all right, we're just going to send out a whole bunch of people. And then, like, actually, one of the best things, I don't know if you read, I don't know if you did, Cheetah and Cheshire rob the Justice League is fucking amazing. Okay. It's so good, dude. But it just shows the flawed system of, you have Cyborg, you have Red Tornado, you have these amazing AI and not AI things, and you still have people breaking in. So again, when you have something like this, you have to put flaws into it. Like Cyborg Superman literally becomes the walls of this fucking place. And it's just like, you have to have stuff like that, or else what are you doing? You're going to have a utopia. And when you have that, the books aren't interesting anymore. So you have to have shit like that happen. But it's just like we talked about. So what's the next thing then? Because it can't be some bullshit. It's got to be something big.
Yeah, yeah, and I do think that's a risk when you keep getting bigger and bigger like that. Whereas I gravitate towards stories that are smaller and more personal, and the stakes are more emotional as opposed to biblical. So I agree. Like, yeah, with Justice League Unlimited, I wanted to enjoy it a lot more than I did, and unfortunately, like, just this setup, it just doesn't do a ton for me. But you mentioned Airwave, so just to kind of circle back, in a recent episode, we talked about John Henry Irons. We talked about John Henry Jr., who was one of the time lost sidekicks recovered during the Stargirl, the Lost Children miniseries. And we talked about how, like, those characters since those lost sidekicks really haven't gotten a lot of play. I don't know, credit where credit's due, I suppose. I mean, it turns out Airwave was one of those time lost sidekicks. That's how Grodd was able to manipulate him so easily. This poor kid had been out of the loop for decades, had no idea who Gorilla Grodd was. And then similarly, when you get to that Kids Are All Fight special, which I didn't pour over, but there you're also dealing with some of these lost sidekicks. So at least they popped up there. Actually two other things with Justice League. One is that, as I was mentioning before, we do get the return of the World Forger. And so World Forger...
Did you roll your eyes?
Time Trapper, Doomsday, Gorilla Grodd, and Booster Gold, who turns out to be Darkseid in disguise.
Has been Darkseid the whole time. The Quantum Quorum? And even Time Trapper was like, I don't trust them.
Right.
I trust you, though. So
I wanted to mention that. And then on the Justice League Unlimited front, you were getting at this before, but during KO, because we've been talking about the lead up to it, but during KO, the Justice League Unlimited ran the storyline called the Terrific 10.
Terrific 10.
Where Earth is mostly evacuated, but there are still some folks left. And now we have villains who are getting in the way and who are stealing their souls for Neuron.
Yeah.
And Mr. Terrific leads this group of quote unquote remnants.
Lost. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There are these sort of phantoms of other heroes who arrived here during the time travel shenanigans.
Blue Superman, Owl Woman,
Aquaman with the hook.
Batman Beyond, but not
but Tim, Tim. Gold Hawk, Owl Woman.
Yeah.
And so we have in this storyline, we have Mr. Terrific leading these remnants. Together they form the Terrific 10 on this march through the underworld to reach Neuron, to undo this business. This storyline worked for you? You like this?
So I did, only because I think I was just trying to enjoy something.
Right. Yeah.
And I liked how they all had a sacrifice. Like in the right moment, they were all like, listen, I know if I leave here, I'm gone forever, but these are the things that I need to do. And then Owl Woman actually took the deal prior, and she was like, no, that's already me, Mr. Terrific. It ain't got to be you. So I did like that a lot. There's something about when DC, Marvel, whoever go to actual hell and heaven that I'm like, I don't know if I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. What's funny to me about this is that just a few minutes ago, I was talking about Underworld Unleashed, that 90s event where the villains all made this deal with the devil, with Neuron. And that was written by Mark Waid. And here's Mark Waid again. The villain's making a deal with Neuron. It's like, if it worked once, you do it again.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the line? I don't know. What's the line between repeating your story versus a callback?
Yeah.
There's something to be, I don't know, maybe there's something fitting about, hey, no, this is what happens, especially in times of crisis.
Yeah.
But one thing that I really did like, Owl Woman, like you said, she's made the side deal with Neuron. But then at the climax of the story, back on Earth, she observes other members of Justice League Unlimited getting through to these villains who had made this deal with Neuron. And the fact that the heroes offer these villains a way off Earth, even after everything they've done, that resonates, and she has a change of heart, and she rescues Mr. Terrific. So,
I do like, it was very intelligently written, like, because Charon the Boatman is in it. And then at one point and the art was great. Like they went off on these demons, like the one little girl with the snakes coming out of her eyes, and Terrific outthinks her. She goes, there's nothing you can do. She's like, I know everything you're about to do. He goes, okay, well then I'll challenge you at a game. And she's like, but I can tell if you're lying. He goes, that's correct. And he goes, his statement is, this statement is false. And she's like, fuck. Like she realizes that like he got her. And then she ends up fucking attacking him anyway. And I think she sends like wood snakes after Alan Scott and like kills him. I was like, God damn. But like, I like that because the stakes are real, right? Like when we look at the DC center or anything, Marvel Image or whatever, your stakes only go so high. because you know these people are going to keep repeating. These people are just like, yo, we know they're going to die, and we kind of feel for it because they're like, they know they're going to die too. They're like, listen, I'm not going back to where I came from. This is it for me. So I did like the finality of it. I thought that was interesting enough to be like, fuck, man, like that really hit pretty hard.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I that's a story I imagine if I ever go back to it kind of on its own, maybe I'll enjoy it even. I didn't dislike it, but I don't know how much it did for me, but it definitely intriguing. And especially to put Michael Holt at the forefront of this, someone who is, you know, known to be an atheist, right? He doesn't believe in any of this yet he is faced with the reality of going to hell.
In his, I don't know if you read it in his miniseries, Year One, he talks to the Spectre, and the Spectre's like, I am the actual wrath of God. He's like, I'm buying it. It's just like it's coming right from him. But that's it, dude. He's a man of science, man. But Reed Richards is the same way. He's like, science. He's like, fucking magic isn't real. He's like, bitch, you know magicians. He's like, nope, it's just science that I haven't figured out yet. So like stuff like that, I actually like when people stick to what they believe, even beyond like, yeah, you know, this thing is out there. He's like, yeah, but I ain't buying it like that. He's like, I don't think that's what it is. So a lot of that stuff is really good.
Yeah, for sure. Now, on the Superman front, we've been hitting on a lot of this already, but in the Omega Act special at the beginning of this, we get a flashback to Lara and Ursa on Krypton in their earlier days.
Yeah.
And they're investigating these ruins, and they find a hidden chamber with these artifacts from other worlds. And at this point in time, Krypton had outlawed any sort of interstellar travel or contact with other worlds. And there's this business about the Heart of Apocalypse and these warnings. And we get our first hint, well, more than a hint in that special, that the being created to oppose Darkseid, i.e. Doomsday, was not the ultimate weapon, but rather the absolute champion.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the Superman issues that tie into KO, you have Lois taking this detour because she's supposed to evacuate the Earth with everyone else, but she takes this detour and goes to the fortress and first questions Jor-El and kind of hits a wall. And then Lara pops up. And it was great to have that
was
moment.
Really cool, man. That was really cool.
That was great. And Lara was the historian. She was the one who would have this information. And essentially the gist of the rest of these issues is Lois, with the robot Superman's help and with the help of Superboy Prime, getting the information that Lara has to Time Trapper Doomsday. I guess maybe I'm getting nitpicky here, but I guess I was expecting a little bit more of a revelation when they finally got to Time Trapper, as opposed to simply, hey, you are this absolute champion. You're not just about death and destruction, but also rebirth. And that this is a gift you can give to Superman, which is what he does in the final issue of KO. Maybe I was expecting too much and this was unrealistic, but I just kind of felt like we already knew the quote unquote twist about Doomsday as early as that Omega Act special. And I just thought there was going to be something new for the audience by the time we got to them passing that information along. But maybe that was an unrealistic expectation to have.
I did like the Superman, like he talks to his dad and he was like, you only made one ship. And he goes, yeah, you know, it's all we had time for and we love you and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, if you could have made more, would you? And he's like, I would have saved everyone. And that's when he's like, fuck it, we're making more arcs. And like he goes to Mercy, he's like, we're making more arcs. Like, I love, again, your Superman moments, dude, are always fucking so good. Because he's like, no, I made one. He goes, no, I know you made one. But if you could have made more, would you have saved everyone? And he's like, I would have saved everybody. I'm like, God damn, dude, that was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. But no, not to harp on this, but like with Doomsday, did you think there was going to be something more to it? Or No, okay.
I actually didn't. So when it happened, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. But I think it's because we already knew about it, that they weren't going to tack anything else onto it. It was just the moment where he gets to tell Superman. And he's like, oh, by the way, I can do this. I'm going to give it to you because you're the only person that can do this. I think that was it. That was the payoff. Like, I don't know how much bigger it could have been.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not like I necessarily have another revelation, but I just thought there was going to be something else to it. But no, all the stuff with Lois and Superboy Prime and the robot. Yeah. The robot has a great arc in this.
The robot was,
right? Of trying to do what Superman would do and sticking around and helping.
Stopping to go do stuff. And they're like, you can't do that. He's like, I have to do that.
Yeah. So that really resonated. I did like, well, I don't know. I'm a little split on this because part of me is like, I don't know that evil Imra from Darkseid Legion would have had that much of a change of heart that quickly.
Did you get that too? Because I was like, oh, really?
Because she enters Lois's
she was
mind.
Down for the cause.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's this now mental gymnastics between Lois and Imra, and Imra is seeing all of Lois's memories, these memories of her love with Clark, their love story. And then Imra's memories kind of start to bleed into Lois's as well. And she sees Imra's relationship with Lightning Lad, right? If I'm not mistaken. And that triggers something. And Imra retreats. Now, this is in such stark contrast to everything that they have been indoctrinated with by Darkseid.
Yeah.
And I'll choose to buy in and say that the love story between Lois and Clark is so strong, but at the same time, they've made such a point about how absolutely evil this Legion is. So I don't know.
Even
that might have been a little too quick.
And again, it was another pseudo dream sequence where like they kill Martha, like right? Don't they like rip her in half?
Well, that's in an earlier part. That's in the earlier part. But yeah.
And I was like, God damn, that's how they're gonna do it. And it's like, no, it's just a mental thing that we got on. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I was like, holy shit, like they really came out swinging.
Yeah, for sure. And I keep saying this about Superboy Prime, and we'll continue to have more to say about Superboy Prime when we get into Reign of the Superboys, and Prime might be getting his own spotlight episode at some point down the line.
I'm stoked for that because honestly, I was kind of on the fence about him just in general. But after seeing him in the Superman books, I was like, this motherfucker's cool, dude. I really like that character a lot.
I mean, from his reintroduction in number 28 through all of these tie-in issues, I mean, just so many great moments when he and Clark need to get to the future to rescue Booster, and Clark's like, how are we going to get there? And Prime just starts punching reality.
Yeah.
It's like, let's get Silver Age. Great. Yeah. There's another point later. I mean, a big part of that initial storyline is it seems like Prime has turned on Superman and is actually working with Darkseid Legion, but then that turns out to be a misdirect, which was great. And there's this great moment where Prime is like, I don't care what anybody says. I always thought you were the coolest superhero, and Batman can suck eggs.
Yeah.
Like, great. And at the end, when Superman gives him a Legion ring and Prime says, I haven't earned this, and Superman says, you will. Well, great.
Doesn't the cyborg version or the robot Superman, he's like, he never hated you. He was just really disappointed. I was like, oh my God, dude, I'd much rather have Superman hate me than be disappointed in me.
Oh, it was also interesting. I might as well say this here while we're here, because Prime has a line at some point where it's brought up how many people he's killed. And he says, he's like, they've all been brought back in these other reboots. So does it even count? And I'm like, all right, I'll go along with that because that's true. Right. But no, I like all this because I think, and we've hit on this before, we'll hit on it again, but Prime is a pretty tragic figure. I mean, things get away when you go back to that original Infinite Crisis, like things get away from him really quickly. And he's set on this such a dark path so quickly. But when you take a step back, you see everything he's been through, everything he's lost, to see him now have this opportunity again. And it's great. And all the way to the end of this, when he meets Jonathan and Martha, right, on the spaceship outside Earth. And they have it. And he's like, I hope you'll call me Clark. Like, I'm so excited to see where that goes. Like that is such a highlight.
Also, you want to talk about, like, it is tragic. Like, imagine how lonely that motherfucker is. Like he's quick with the lip and he has a good time, but he knows that all of this is bullshit. He knows it's a comic. Dude, at one point, he fucking Booster Gold. He's like, Dan Jurgens is going to be pissed. I was like, yo, this dude knows that he's made up, and he knows all the rest of these people are made up, and he still cares. Like, dude, imagine being in like that kind of microcosm and shit like that. Like, that's rough, man. And like, yes, he gets to be Superman and he gets to like have this ultimate power, but holy shit, man, like that's got to be a real fucking rough existence.
Look, never forget that after Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Earth 2 Superman and Lois Lane and the Earth 3 Alexander Luthor and Superboy Prime went off into what we thought at the time was heaven.
Yeah.
But then it turns out it's just this other dimension where it's just the four of them watching everything that's going on. Now, Superman and Lois, they have each other. They can retire to their private chambers.
Yeah.
All Prime has is Alexander Luthor. And himself. Yeah. I mean, but I mean, how would that twist with everything? I mean, it's to go from, oh, they're getting their heavenly reward to no, this is like a living hell, or at least it could
it's just you basically alone. Like he doesn't have Alexander Luthor. He's always alone. Like I think he even kind of mentions something like that, or at least alludes to it. He doesn't have anybody. Like he's got him. He can go to all these different places, but like he doesn't really hold relationships because he's like, it's all fucking fake.
Yeah. But, and then as far as the doomsday of it all, yeah, the fact that going all the way back to like Rise of the Superwoman in the main Superman title, when he first showed up as the time trapper, you know, to kind of have this and to break the cycle, as he says, between this death and rebirth and this constant eternal battle between the two of them. I like that aspect of it. I really liked.
And that's what I'm saying. On the most part, I liked it. I didn't like it for what it was. I liked it for the little parts that made it up. I didn't like it for DCKO. I liked it for the little moments inside DCKO. Like those were way better than the story as a whole. Like I didn't expect, like, I don't know what I was expecting. I knew I wasn't going to come in and you were going to be like, this is the fucking greatest thing I've ever read. It was rushed and still felt too long at the same time. So there was parts in it that I will sing the praises of, but as a whole, no, man, I think it's a swing and a miss. And like I said, you have two of them battling at the beginning of the war of the universe. Where do you go from there? And it's just like, now everything's going to be like, all right, now we got to outdo it. And that's the problem with stuff like Justice League Unlimited. Where do you go from there? Right? So either you go all the way back to one and you split everyone up and you make it land-based stuff all over again, because now you can't do this a lot anymore. You got to take it all the way back down.
You know, I read a bunch of patron comments and questions, but on X, Scott Snyder posted today and said, thank you guys so much for the support you've shown for this whole crazy event. We've had such a blast. For all its throwdowns, it's a personal one about Superman and heroism. All right. I mean, you know, I would have, like, the thing is, and I don't want to be a jerk. Like, I would have loved to have been able to wholeheartedly co-sign on that.
Sure.
And say that, yeah, you know what, as bombastic as this was, as much as it was about all these smackdowns and these matchups, no, at the end of the day, it really was a heartfelt, emotional story. I can't get all the way there.
No.
And I wish I could, which is the frustrating
There wasn't
part.
enough of that for that to be it. I don't know if a lot of shit was cut. Like, I don't know if maybe the extra stuff took away from that, because I don't know. Well, no, because you read 1 through 5 pretty much straight through and it didn't hit for you either. So no, I don't think it landed. I don't think it stuck the landing like he thought it did.
We did have one last patron question. I mean, you've already hit on this, but I don't know that you've answered this yet, which is kind of shocking to me because we're coming up on an hour and a half here. But Brent asked how you felt about Lobo losing to Wonder Woman.
Oh, I'm fine with that. Like, look, my dream was have him go all the way to the end. Like, why? Like, of course, right? But I think how he lost was a beautiful love letter to the actual history of the character. So when it opened up and it's the Almighty watching TV, I went, Lobo's going to lose. I knew it right away. And the fact that and then they're like kicking each other in the shins. Like, okay, it was a very throwback to like the Giffen Bisley, where like he does unbelievable shit on different planets, like has sex with a planet full of women. Like, it was more goofy in certain parts, but it was a big nod to the history. So when it opened up and it's the Almighty watching TV, I'm like, Lobo's going to lose. Now I just want to see how it happens. But I like that he's like, I'm going to beat you up with something pretty. And technically, she didn't win round 2. The Wonder Girls won round 2.
Right. And
it was just like, but it was cool for what it was, especially because my favorite anti-heroes going up against my favorite, like, everyone knows my love for Wonder Woman, man. It's a strong female character. It's my mom, right? So the fact that he lost to her, I'm like, that's dope, especially the way it was done. It was like, no, now I'm turning this off. Because he went in the whole time, he's like, I can't die, bitch. Like, I don't know what you expect to do. And that's not how it fucking went down. I was like, that was cool, man. That was cool.
I don't know anywhere close to the amount of Lobo lore that you do, but I still had this innate sense when the Almighty came and basically turned off the immortality. Yeah. I was like, I think that's going to work for DeVoe. I feel like that's going to be acceptable.
And it did. And the fact that, because look, a lot of people are starting to know the character more now, obviously movies coming out, but a lot of people probably looked at that and went, who the fuck is watching TV of this? Like, I imagine a lot of people did that, but the people who didn't do that were like, this is the coolest thing I've seen in a long time, because now the stakes are high again. Yeah. And I think that's great.
I mean, I guess we haven't talked a ton about Superman versus Captain Atom. I know you talked about, you know, your frustration about not acknowledging Captain Atom's previous godhood.
But even that one, I was like, great, because he's like, dude, I can turn into kryptonite and I'm nuclear. You're fucked, man. So they had to pick the right people in order to do it right. So that one I was like, good, thank you. My only hang up is the fact that it's probably because I like the Jenny Sparks series so much. And that was the entire thing was he's like, oh my God, watch me just do whatever I want. That was the only hang up. And it was something so small and stupid. But you know, when you cling on something and you're like, huh, why didn't he just say, I thought about it, I was a god once?
Yeah, fair. Yeah. I mean, I guess the second round of that was particularly interesting because that's when Superman chooses the 853rd Superman Prime iteration. And I don't know if memory serves. What is he like? He blows out the sun or something and freezes Captain Atom, but he's got enough solar reserves because he's the version of the character who's been in the sun for centuries.
Right. And then the third one, he's like, I'm just going to be me, man. He's like, we're just going to see how it happens.
Right. But then Captain Atom is essentially like attacking Superman with Captain Atom's own history. And then that sort of merges Captain Atom's origin and powers onto Superman. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Again.
But look, at least he acknowledged up front. He's like, Clark, you're going to fucking lose. Like, I'm everything that you're basically allergic to. He's like, you're fucked, man. But he's also a military dude. And he's also very proud. Like, he's very prideful. So he went in going, I'm going to win this one, as he should, because that's the way the character is. And he ended up losing, which I thought was really cool. But putting them up against each other, making it go 3 rounds, I appreciated. Yeah. Because if it was a 2-round joint, I'd be like, fuck you. Like, now I'm just pissed off. But the fact that it was 3, I was really into it.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think that whole idea of the vision that Superman saw and how he would reject it and just keep the world as it is, I think Captain Atom also charges essentially the same thing in that issue. Yeah. Look, it's one of those things. Have I ever spent an ounce of thought energy wondering, gee, who would win, Superman versus Captain Atom? No. But sure, like it was, it worked. Yeah. And then we have the whole the tag team month where the remaining 8 are each allowed to bring somebody, someone who had been in the tournament before, except for Joker, who has the ability to bring in anybody.
Yeah.
And of course, he brings in the surprise Mr. Mxyzptlk, and we get a callback to Emperor Joker, which was great. I mean, how perfect for us, especially because we did our whole Emperor Joker episode.
I know.
See, aren't you glad I had you read that? Because now you got to this, and you were like,
I love that book, dude. I do like that Lex was like, he picked Supergirl and she immediately turned on him and he hits her with the red K and she just turns. I was like, of course he would have thought about that. He didn't pick her thinking that she was going to fight with him. He picked her going, I have this other thing that I know is ready for that ass. So like, that's basically what that was, which I appreciated.
Yeah. I mean, Guy calling in Hal, that tracked. Superman calling in Shazam, and especially
for that. Yeah.
Having him do his trick of calling down the lightning, that worked. Lex and Kara, like you said. I like that Aquaman brought back Hawkman, his opponent.
I did too.
The sea and the air, right?
Especially because like I thought Hawkman was going to win that. Like he goes and talks to Anubis, like what's the Ra or whatever. Like he goes to talk to his god and he's like, Aquaman's a god, you're a god now. And I was like, oh shit, like this is going to get fucking crazy. But now like Aquaman can basically boil your blood. Like as the head of the Blue, like he's got a lot more power than he did prior. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Wonder Woman bringing in Barda made total sense. I love that.
Barda.
Cyborg. This was such a pleasant surprise. Cyborg pulling in Connor Hawke.
Yeah.
Look, for a decent stretch of time, like Connor Hawke, that was my Green Arrow. I mean, when I was first reading Green Arrow, it was Connor Hawke. Ultimately, I became more of an Ollie fan, but like Connor Hawke was my guy. So that was cool.
I liked little twists like that. I thought that was really cool. He's like, dude, why me? Do you know who we're fighting? He goes, yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. And then Zatanna and Constantine versus Joker and Mxyzptlk. And then that gives us our final 4 of Superman, Lex, Wonder Woman, and Joker. And then that leads us into what we were talking about before with the absolute characters being controlled by the Omega energy, Batman returning, Joker switching sides, all of them seemingly dying except for Superman and Lex turning on Superman, then Superman getting another shot thanks to the Time Trapper. I hate to keep having complaints, but at the very end, you love it though. At the very end, when Superman,
I'm a big fan.
Superman has relinquished the King Omega title. He has not remade the world in his own image.
Right.
He's sent Darkseid back to his own world to be a threat down the line, which again still bothers me. But you know what? I don't know. Does Superman know what? I don't know what Superman knows. So. Maybe he thinks he has totally dealt with Darkseid. I don't know.
But I think that Darkseid knew. Because he's already had all this shit planned, which I liked. Like, they didn't outthink him. He already knew. He knew that by setting all these traps in all these other worlds. He was getting the same. And like, not for nothing, I want to see some of them other fights, man. Like I want to see Ultraman and shit. Like I want to see who like those fights too. But again, we're not going to get it.
But then as after this is done, he tells Batman and Wonder Woman and Lex that he has something else to do, but he'll be back.
Yeah. And he's gone. He pimps off.
He has to be off the board for Reign of the Superboys, and then he'll be back. And then at the end, you have Bruce and Diana talking to Lois, and Lois is like, it's okay. Like, he'll be back. I just wish I knew why. Yeah,
she tells me, she's like, guys, you don't have to treat me with kid gloves, man. Like, I'm a big girl. Like, I know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, two things. One, kind of echoes of the end of All-Star Superman, when we pick up 1 year later after Superman has left to repair the sun, and Lois is talking to Jimmy, and she's like, he'll be back after he's done fixing the sun. To what extent we believe that, open to interpretation. Right. But the other thing is, this is my gripe, and maybe this is really a nitpick, but I feel like my Superman, when he was saying goodbye to Bruce and Diana specifically, would have said, tell Lois, beef bourguignon with ketchup. Their code phrase.
Wow.
I just think he would have. I think he would have told them to tell her that, so that she would know, okay, I get he'll be fine. I don't know. Just saying.
I'm telling you, man, it's those little things. I'm telling you, it's those little things that when they're not there, you go, oh, fuck. Like, why isn't that there? And again, it's not a bit like, look, other people would have went right over it. Like I did, right? Like I went right. But as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh, yeah. So certain little things, but it's like we always say, you can't please 100% of the people 100% of the time.
Is there anything else we haven't talked about with KO that you wanted to? I know, obviously, we haven't gotten into every nook and cranny of this entire event, but big picture, is there anything we haven't hit on that we need to?
No, man. I think we both said that it was fine. It's not a reread for me. Like, definitely not a reread for me. Am I excited for what's going to come after it? I don't know now, because it seems like it's too big. Little stuff made it, but the main storyline did not. I think that pretty much covers it for me.
Yeah. Overall, a fun enough ride. I definitely had my qualms with it. It's weird though, right? The audience heard I had such a journey with Final Crisis.
Yeah.
Right. We read it originally, reread it not long after. It didn't work for me. Now it's my second favorite Crisis of all time. Yeah. So you never know. My opinion on this might improve over time. I agree with you. I don't know how quick I would be to revisit this. And I just can't shake that eye roll that I had when I got to the very end and this tease of Absolute Crisis.
Yeah.
I like I said, I wish I didn't feel that way, but I got there and I'm just like, I'm not chomping at the bit to go down this road again. So we'll see. But whenever it happens, we'll talk about it. The last thing on a positive note, going back to what you were saying before, because I think this is important. You said this, and I've said this in other episodes. I think the individual titles, so many of the individual titles in the DC universe right now have been so strong and so enjoyable. I'm always
the big overarching things.
Yeah. I'm always singing the praises of Mark Waid's Action Comics. We just did an episode on Absolute Superman. There was so much to sink our teeth into there. Yeah. So I think it ultimately, like, that's a positive. Like, there's so much that's good that's going on. And then to sort of pivot to this sort of event that for us left something to be desired, just ends up being a little disappointing. But maybe it feels more disappointing to us because of how much we're enjoying the other stuff.
Because of how good the other stuff is. Yeah. Especially the Absolute stuff, man. The Absolute stuff is reigning supreme for me right now.
Yeah. Hopefully Absolute Crisis doesn't mess it up too much.
From your lips to God's ears, or the Almighty, or whoever that we believe is going to be.
All right. Obviously, everyone should visit your local comic shop, Fat Moose Comics, if they're able to, or reach out to them via the Facebook page. And they should follow at Real Life Lobo on Instagram and follow your fitness and cosplay journey, which is always inspiring to look at.
Started cutting season. Back on the stepper, man.
Back on that stepper.
And I'm 45, so it takes a little bit longer for the weight to come off these days. So I got to start earlier and earlier.
And listen, I'm just waiting for interactions with Jason Momoa, because I feel like it's only a matter of time before I see him sliding into those comments there.
Hopefully this year he's there, because that's the one picture I want, and that would make my life.
Right on. All right. Thank you, DeVoe. Thank you, audience. Always appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you come back next week. Until then, as always, it's about what you do. It's about action. Support the show and receive exclusive content by becoming a member at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato. Rewards include our DCU spinoff podcast, advanced listens, sponsorship opportunities, and more. My sincere thanks to all patrons. Please rate and review the podcast via your platform of choice. Subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and continue the conversation by joining us on social media. By popular demand, Digging for Kryptonite merch is available at our TeePublic store. Visit the link in the show notes to get your DFK shirts, hats, mugs, and more. Flat Squirrel Podcast is also home to Lighting the Bat Signal, a Batman fan journey, which applies the signature Digging for Kryptonite approach to the Dark Knight, as well as another exciting episode in the Adventures of Superman, now in its final year covering the classic George Reeves series. Subscribe today. Digging for Kryptonite is a Flat Squirrel production. Key art by Isaiah Simmons and theme music by Dan Pritchard.